Hey, I'm Tini, and the goal of this channel is to enrich your life experience through practical tips and strategies. And today I'm here with Matthew Williams, who is an author, speaker, and coach, and he specializes in mental health and well-being after a breakup. So this is what we're going to talk about today: how to transition smoothly to the next chapter of your life after having gone through a breakup. And another thing about Matthew is that he is the author of Something Changed. And as he puts it in the book description that you can find on Amazon, is an honest, funny, and uplifting memoir that takes in divorce, depression, dating, and becoming a single dad. So, hey, Matthew, thank you for accepting my invitation.
Hello there, welcome. It's great to be here. Nice to be here speaking with you.
I want you to take us a bit back into the past, and let's talk about what made you decide to write the book.
Well, it's funny really, because I never did decide to write a book. So what happened was I'd never sat down to write anything beyond, functional stuff for work and this report or wherever. But I always knew, I was pretty good at doing that. And at school, I'd done well in English, and I was a good writer at school. But again, it was always in response to, this is your task and you do it. This is your assignment, you do it. I'd never written kind of expressively for me. I'd never done anything like that. I've always been an avid reader. And I guess I was one of these, like a lot of people, the idea of having written a book would have been amazing to me. But I never realistically thought it was something that I could do. You see, I read a lot, and you'd read a sentence and you think, how did they create that sentence? Where does that come from? Anyway, and it was following my divorce. It was about a year on, and lots of things were going on in my life, and kind of all hit me really. And I just had a compulsion to write about it, and that's the best way I can explain it really. Because like I said, I'd never planned it, I'd never done that. I just had a compulsion to write about it, and what I did, I wrote something about 600, I think it was about 600, 700 words. I found a blogging app, and I just posted it all within a couple of hours of having this compulsion really. And then once I'd done that, it just kind of poured out of me. I don't know. It just came out. And it was a blog that I was writing, and and I was getting nice kind of feedback on it. People were following it. I got asked to, my work got published on different websites and things. And I'd been doing it for, it was probably about a year and a half. And and I'd written obviously a lot in that period, and I was just in conversation with a friend on a work friend just said about you should publish a book, and I said, oh well, I don't know how. I wouldn't know how to go about it. You've got to get an agent, you've got to do this. And she goes, no, you can. I said, no, there's loads of ways you can do it nowadays with with Amazon Kindle and whatever. And so I just looked into it, and so then the decision came from that moment. I think it probably took me maybe a couple of weeks to shape what I'd already written as a blog and to turn it into a book. And so so it was never really a kind of a conscious decision. It was just something that evolved really. Very glad it did. And now I can read, and it's funny because when I started writing, this idea before, like, you think, how does someone write that? It's like, I think it's weird. I kind of don't know where it comes from, and I've heard a lot of people who are creative, whether they write songs or whatever, they don't know where it comes from. It just kind of comes out of them. And I can write something, and I could flick through my book and think, I couldn't write that, but I did. It's a strange thing, but I'm very grateful that I discovered it and started doing it.
It's kind of like our conversation. Where do the words come from?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something that I've heard. I mean, I've always been into reading. I've been into music, and I remember listening to interviews with, Tori Amos is someone I listen to a lot, and You know, I know John Lennon's got a quote where they say about, in terms of creating, it's like that. It's almost like they're a channel for it. All of this stuff is out there somewhere, somehow, and whatever it is they have is as a channel for bringing this into the world. Now, I remember I used to think that sounded a bit kind of arty and pretentious when I wasn't arty and pretentious. Whereas now I think, yeah, you know, having just something about that process. I think it's like it connects you to something bigger, and so whatever it is comes through you, which then connects you to other people through putting your work, your words out there, then connects you with other people, and you know, your experiences become filtered through, you know, what they can take out of it, what means something for them, what resonates with them. And I just think that whole process is just amazing, really. And it's changed my life for the better, for sure.
And tying this into breakups, it's kind of like when you go through a breakup, you don't see what's out there and you don't see what's possible. So can you take us a bit into this part of breakups? What have you noticed?
So, I mean, I've been with my ex-wife. We've been together like 19 years, and we broke up just before my 40th birthday. So the whole of my adult life, you know, I've been, you know, we've been in a relationship together. Before that, I was with someone else for 2 years. So I hadn't really been single in my whole adult life. You know, when I grew up, I didn't even have my own bedroom. I shared with my brother. So I'd never had, I guess, my own space just being me. And, you know, where I could just escape to the world and not have anyone else's expectations on me or whatever. I didn't think that at the time, but suddenly to be on my own, you know, I didn't want to be. I mean, obviously, I didn't want my marriage to end, but then that happens and you deal with it. But I didn't want to be on my own. And you know, that led into kind of dating and other relationships and stuff. But you know, I soon realized that it kind of reveals so many new things about yourself. And writing really helped me to process that. Because it's like, you know, so many things will happen. You know, I'd be out with I remember one night out with my brother and different things where suddenly and then meeting different people where different aspects of your personality had come out and you do different things or think different things. And it's like, God, where's that been? Like, where did that come from? And it's that, so you kind of actually getting to know yourself all over again. And there's something I did, and I think something a lot of people do, is go straight into another relationship, which, and again, I don't regret that. That was, you know, really helped me at the time and helped me to move on. But, you know, I do think a breakup really does give you an opportunity, you know, and particularly in my circumstances where I'd never been on my own, certainly in my adult life, to really, you know, build a life around who you are and what you want. And you know, not being with someone because that's what you do when you're just used to being in a relationship, but to actually, you know, have a better idea of who you are, what you want, what you need, beyond, you know, fancying someone and getting on with them. You know, and I think being at the stage of life I was, you know, beyond, once I got past the initial, obviously, shock and hurt of the breakup, it's like, well, you know, I'm at a point in my life where, you know, touch wood, fingers crossed, all the rest of it, I've got more of my life ahead of me still. You know, whereas at that time I was thinking, you know, it's almost like my whole life has gone, that's all I'd known. But suddenly it's like, well, I've got a whole life ahead of me. And I'm at a stage of my life, you say, well, I'm still kind of young enough to live a bit, but at the same time, I've got life experience that can help me to make better choices and, you know, to consciously create the kind of life I want. You know, you don't go into a relationship when you're 20 thinking like that. And I suppose I saw it as an opportunity. And I've always had that kind of self-reflective thing about, you know, wanting to learn from experience and what have you. But But I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like it was plain sailing and it was an easy thing. You know, and this is one of the things of the work I do now. It's, you know, I always say I made a lot of mistakes, you know, because you kind of stumbling blindly through it all. You know, but because of my experiences, I believe I'm able to help others to, you know, to understand the things that they might be feeling after a breakup, the things, you know, the unhealthy ways sometimes you try and deal with it, which, and you know, the reasons for that. But to say really help people to get clear about who they are, what they want, what they need, and to have a really strong sense of self. One of the things I realized that when I look at certain relationships and is, I think in the past I'd put too much of my sense of self in someone else's hands, and I won't do that anymore. It's like, you know, when you really know who you are, it kind of doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of you. You know, you're doing things more consciously, not to fulfill, you know, some gap within yourself.
Yes, and trying to live life for the other person instead of living your life and having that other person join you with their own desires. And
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And it is that kind of meeting of equals, isn't it? And you know, they say this thing about, and it's like anything, you know, you get a lot of cliches, and I'm probably guilty of trotting some of them out myself, but you know, people say, you know, you can't love someone until you love yourself. And it's like, well, you know, you know, not saying you have to be a fully realized kind of Zen person before you can go out with someone. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I think the nature of a relationship is very different when you are, you know, when you know yourself, you accept yourself, you love yourself, all of this kind of thing, because you're coming at it from a place where, say, you're not looking to fulfill a perceived gap in yourself. Sorry, someone was ringing me. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So you're not looking for someone else to fill a gap in you. It's a choice of wanting to share your life and yourself that you're already happy with someone else, as opposed to trying not to be unhappy on your own.
Yeah, I like how you said that, because it's not like we're going to find happiness outside of ourselves or in another person. You have to find it in yourself first, because otherwise you won't be able to be happy, no matter what happens.
Yeah, and I remember once, my ex-wife, when we were married, might have even been before we were married, I don't know. But anyway, and I can't remember what caused it, but we were arguing about something. And she said, you know, it's not my job, or it's not my responsibility to make you happy. And I was like, you what? I'm sure it is. You know, I was like, how dare you? But it always stuck with me. And I'm like, God, yeah, she's right. She's right. And yes, you want to be, of course, you know, you want someone to be happy with you, and you know, you know, and of course you want being around someone else to make you feel happy. Of course you do, but that's not their responsibility. You're responsible for yourself. And it's funny, I remember I actually brought this up with her not that long ago, and and I said, you know, you all right? And she said, oh, it's probably not the best way to put it though. I was like, well, no, but it obviously works because I remember it. But yeah, it's funny how life is.
All right. It made you feel something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You shared with me a 3-step framework that I would really love everyone to hear, of how to transition to the next chapter.
Yeah. So, and a lot of this comes from kind of, you know, when I reflect back on, you know, what worked for me, what helped me, what I wasn't consciously doing at the time, but it's this thing where you get to a point where you think, yeah, I've kind of, you know, got through that and I'm doing all right. And I look back and broke it down into kind of three stages really. And the first one is about, it's that kind of immediately post breakup, but the point where you're not over that person, over your ex. I call it kind of closing the book on your ex. And the key, I suppose, defining feature of that stage is about getting to a point where you're focusing on living your life rather than imagining your exes, because this is one of the things where immediately after the breakup, we're so kind of preoccupied with what they're doing and who they're seeing and all of this, and it's part of the thing that your brain does in terms of processing a loss, and you know, a song comes on that suddenly reminds you of something, or you know, you might see, you know, one of the things I noticed, I'd see a lot of cars that they were same as the car they drove, so you're kind of looking out, and don't know, it's a weird thing, it's the way your brain kind of processes it. So it's moving from that point where you're you know, where your brain is constantly kind of bringing up things to do with your ex, and you get to the point where you're focusing on your own life. And there's a number of mistakes we make that can that make it difficult for us to move on. And one of the most common ones is trying to stay friends, which stops us from being able to process and move on. And another common one is people really struggle to let go because they have this idea in mind that person is the one, and therefore they need to hang on and cling on. If they can just do this and prove that somehow it'll all work out, and it just delays you from getting on and living your own life. So that's kind of the first phase. The second stage is what I call "Who are you?" A Middlesbrough expression, place of the world that I'm from, which is really about getting to know who you are. And it can sound kind of cheesy. I remember this whole notion when I remember as a kid, where you'd hear people talking about really getting to know who they are and getting to know themselves. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a load of rubbish. Yeah, of course you know yourself, you're with yourself every day, but of course you don't, you know, what motivates you, what pushes certain buttons in you. You know, different people bring out different aspects of your personality, and so really getting to know and understand yourself, and from that being able to recognize what you want and need in a relationship, you know, whether you actually want to be in a relationship or whether you want to spend time on your own, because a relationship isn't the be all and end all. Although it can seem it when you're going through a breakup, because you want to replace what you've lost. So using that as an opportunity, and some of the things people will say is that, you know, they come out of a relationship and they don't know who they are anymore. They look back and they feel like they were living someone else's life. You know, all these realizations that we can have, and it's a real opportunity to kind of learn from that, as opposed to jumping into a relationship where again we're molding ourselves around another person. So a breakup really offers you that opportunity, and to be honest, it kind of forces you to it. Because one of the other things I've learned, you know, is that if you don't learn that kind of thing, you often end up repeating the same mistakes of the past. So they'll go back to it is your job to make me happy. And then the third stage, when we know ourselves, it's about creating the life that's right and best for us, a life where we're fulfilled. And I have a real interest in identity and who we are. And I think, you know, talk about mental health has been part of my life experience. I've worked in it, I've experienced it myself, and I think there's a lot of mental distress caused by relating to our identity, whether we don't truly know who we are, or if there's a disparity between who we are or who we believe ourselves to be and the life that we live. You know, if this is kind of you know, if that isn't what's the word, if it doesn't equate, if it's kind of out off kilter. And also the you know, where we have to repress who we are to fit in with what's expected of us. They're all things that can cause real distress, and I'm really interested in helping the people to really know who they are and to live a life that's consistent with who they are and who they want to be. So, and I call this, it's about, you don't put Rocky in a rom-com. We need to know ourselves as the leading actor in the story of our life. And then the story needs to fit that person. It's no good. Again, Arnold Schwarzenegger, well, he's made a few comedies, but he's not known for it, let's be honest. So, and it's about, again, living a life that allows you to be the fullest expression of who you are. And I think this is partly it comes with age, where, and again, in my experiences, particularly around mental health, to the point where, I don't care what, not about, but I don't care what people think of me. I mean, yeah, of course you want to be liked, and I'd like to think I'm a likable person, but you're not everyone's cup of tea. And what's important is that you're good with who you are. And I think, when, I don't know, maybe part of it is with age, but a lot of it is down to a lot of hard, conscious work to get to a point where, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of me, because only I can live my life, so I'm not going to waste it trying to keep someone else happy, because, you can spend all your time trying to keep someone else happy. They can be gone tomorrow, so, you owe yourself first.
Yeah, I like this framework and how you transitioned into it. And I really like the framework that you use with films and books, closing the book and then stepping on the next scene.
Yeah, well, so and this, in terms of the work that I do and kind of helping people, this idea of the story analogy, it kind of didn't leave me. I got the kind of seed of an idea, and it kind of grew, really, because for me it was writing about it, about my own experiences. It really helped me to process it, but because it gives you a bit of distance and you kind of see it more objectively. And again, you see yourself, or I did, as a character in the story of my life. And we're very attached to ourselves, our idea of ourselves, and that there's a lot of emotion tied in with that. But when we look at it objectively, and this idea that you're an actor in a story, and your character could have made other choices. Again, it's more objective than, I don't know, I'd feel this defensiveness when you're talking about you and the choices you made. Your instinct or mind is to be defensive about that. So it was kind of a tool to look at our lives more objectively by looking at it as scenes in a story, and our relationships being our co-stars, and just to give that little bit of emotional distance. It helps us to see it more objectively. And so, yeah, that's the kind of framework I've created, and it's it just lends itself very well, I think, as well to, when we look at personal development coaching, it's a simple process. Where are you now, where you wanting to get to, how you're going to get there. It's easy in theory, but in practice, a lot of people find it very difficult. A lot of people find it difficult to tell you what they're good at, what their strengths are. A lot of people really struggle with that. To be able to see themselves objectively. So, I'll ask a question, for instance, like who, if you could be any character from a story or a film or a TV series for one day, who would it be and why? And that reveals something about them without them having to go and think about who they are. And so it's kind of quite revealing. I asked, what would be your, we all play different roles in our life. What would be your Oscar-winning role? What's the role you play when you're at your best and you feel, this is me and nothing else matters? And then we think about, well, how much, how often in your life are you playing that role? How can we have you showing up in that role more often? And so you build a better life through creating a better story for yourself. That's the kind of analogy I use, and we follow that through so that people can, design a life they love.
I really like that. What type of role would you play if you wanted to win an Oscar or something like that? But it's the Oscar that you give to yourself, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And something else I'm very this idea of kind of looking at ourselves more objectively, because you know we it's part of our nature. We're judgmental. We put things in certain categories. This is good. This is bad. You know, it's just a simple way of making sense of the world. But but we can be particularly harsh and judgmental about ourselves. And my belief is that a lot of people, you know, capable of far more than they even think is possible. And this is something I've learned. Like I say, I mean, the book is an example. You know, yeah, I would never have thought, and I certainly would never have set out to be someone whose life is really was built on helping people through experiences of being divorced and battling depression. They were never things I set out to achieve in my life. You know, I'll get myself depressed and divorced and I'll build a career out of that. I mean, you know, but that it's kind of embracing those experiences and owning them and again weaving them into your story and turning them into something good. And but like I said, people are kind of very judgmental about themselves, and so I try not to look at things like, you know, what your strengths and weaknesses, like what are your attributes, what are your qualities, because and again, relationships really help with this. It's about compatibility. We take things personally about, you know, well, they finished me or they don't want to be with me. But it's just compatibility. It's not personal. It's about finding the right match. And you know, what might be seen as a weakness or a deficiency in one area might actually be a strength in another. So you know, I like to sit with my head in a book. Doesn't make her the most sparkling social. You know, when that's my mood, I'm not going to be sat full of conversation, which isn't great if someone wants to have a conversation with me. But if I'm researching something, if I'm learning, well, it's a real attribute, a real asset. So it's about understanding your qualities and using them in a way that is positive and beneficial, rather than seeing it's a weakness. Well, no, it's a weakness being an introvert if you're going to spend your whole life at parties, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, it's that thing, building a life that's right for you.
I love that. I could sit here and talk to you for ages, but do you think that there needs to happen something, that there is something that needs to happen for someone to decide, I am going to work on myself and see who I am? Like the breakup, okay, let's say that happened. Is there anything else that needs to happen, or something that can make someone think, hey, this is possible for me too?
I think you know, but there's this thing about the comfort zone, isn't there? I mean, most of us, you know, we sort of expect life to be easy. That's how it should be. And I think that the road less traveled, the M. Scott Peck book, and starts with that, saying one of the biggest mistakes we make, and one of the biggest causes of suffering, is this idea that life should be easy. It isn't. But it often takes life to prove that, to show that to you, to really set you on that path to, again, if that, you know, some people, I think it was Churchill said, some people will kind of pick myself, dust them off and carry on like nothing happened, as opposed to using that opportunity to kind of learn and grow from. And I think it takes life, you know, we all want to go along happily and comfortably as far as we can. Of course we do. But it's when we don't have that option anymore that we're given that choice as to, you know, whether we, and it is a choice, you know, as to whether we learn from that experience and use it to the betterment of ourselves, but also that you know, to be able to help and support other people through their own challenges. And you know, we all face them but you know, in different ways. But I think loss is you know, there's an overall theme. I think loss is probably the biggest catalyst for, you know, for those real significant changes, whether it be loss of a job, loss of a relationship, whether it be a bereavement, again, loss of our own sense of self or identity, because of something that maybe happened. I think that, loss, it changes the form and the shape of our life, and we have to replace it with something, or that's how we feel. But we create a new life around that loss, and we incorporate it into who we are, and build a new life around it. So for me, the two big catalysts were the loss of my sense of who I was through my through depression, and obviously the loss of my marriage, and linked with that is my home, my relationship with my kids suddenly changes because I'm not there every day. So a lot of the strongest features of my identity is suddenly I have to reshape. So yeah, and I think that says it's probably a common thing in major transformations in most people's life. It has been the learning how to rebuild after loss.
I love that. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you? And if and if someone invents the word people, I don't
know. I've recently updated my website, and I can be found at www.changeyourstory.org.uk, and there's sections there with a lot of kind of resources around dealing with and building a new and better life after a breakup. There's also a separate section on mental health, which is about helping people to better understand. I mean, from my experience, it's depression, but mental health, and there's different sections on kind of lived experience, on like social attitudes, and there's some advice on where people can get help, and details there also of my signature development coaching program, which is Change, which is this this idea of our life as a story, and we work through 10 scenes so people can get that more objective view of their life, and reframe their story and their narrative to serve where they're going, and to create a life they love. So it's all there, and and I'd love to hear from anyone that might be interested.
Okay, we'll share the links in the description of the video. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I do have to say as well, thank you, because I met you through it was the webinar training, and I'd created my 10-week group program, and it was through meeting you that I understand the value of obviously short courses, and I've created a couple of those. And within my Breakup resources, there's a popular short course that I've created, Wising Up and Moving On. So I must thank you for inspiring me to look at short courses as part of what I offer. But yeah, I mean, I get the thing I like to leave people with, I guess, is this. I think the biggest lesson that, and particularly the mental health side thing, because that's the worst place I've ever been, and I've had 3 episodes of depression, which is horrendous, and as low as you can get, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But the very best experiences of my life came directly from the very worst, and like I said, we have a tendency to think about things as good and bad, and to label things. Now, I would never ever want to go through those things again, but I wouldn't remove them from my story because of what they've led to. They've led me to the most amazing opportunities, doing the work that I'm doing now, to helping people through life, transformational life events, and when we overcome something like that, the biggest gift it can give you, I think, is that I came out with, if I can get through that, I can do anything. And having that mindset where, and again, and not being scared of failing, not being scared of what other people might think, being free from all of that, that is just an amazing place to be. And if I can help more people to get to that point, and then you can really fulfill who you are and who you want to be. And yeah, there's no better way of living, in my opinion, than yeah, that's freedom for me. And that's I think I know in terms of myself, in terms of running my own business, the big thing, that's freedom to be who you are and live how you want to live. And I think there's no better life than a life where you can free to be yourself.
A great ending to a new beginning. Thank you so much.
I love a good turn of phrase. I like that. I might have to use that.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's good because you're gonna think about me every time you use it.
Yeah,
so I'll take
absolutely. Thank you very much. That's it. You always, and that's it. You know, there's you're always learning and picking things up from other people. What can I steal? I love that.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone watching and listening. And until next time, stay inspired and have fun. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.